A girl with brown hair and a black suit, with a concentrated face, runs through the city, jumping from one high-rise building to another. Her foot leaves the surface. The girl dodges the red beam that flies past her. She runs quickly, and beads of sweat roll down her face. The brunette wonders why they noticed so quickly and followed her. The girl realizes that they were tracking her energy, and it's obvious. On a blue background there is a clock with gold edging, Roman numerals and beautiful hands. She thinks that this is the prophet's pocket watch, that is, an artifact that she received in the lower dungeon. Then the girl with a surprised face sat in front of the chest, opening it, and a bright light emanated from inside. She stands in front of the table where the clock is located, her mouth open, and is about to press something. Behind the girl you can see the silhouettes of gears. The brunette realizes that the clock turns back time and connects the past with the present. She believed that this was a miracle that would save her life. The girl looks away and exhales. While inside a building, she sits down under a window, outside of which one can see devastation. The brunette closes her eyes and assumes that she somehow escaped. She places her black gloved hands on the surface near the clock, on which red marks appear. The girl says that she will now try to set the clock to work. Suddenly, she notices something. A crack appears in the stone ceiling of the building. Pieces of it begin to fall down. A large monster with yellow eyes can be seen from the hole that appears. The girl looks up from her work and looks at him in alarm, assuming that this is Hercules, who has gotten here. The monster opens its mouth and begins to study the violet light. His huge hand crashes into the girl's face. Hercules grabs the brunette, who is trembling with fear. He puts out his hand with the girl and jumps. Her face turns blue and blood flows from her mouth. Landing on the ground, Hercules swings at the girl lying on the ground. She thinks that she cannot die like this. The monster's fist strikes hard. Hercules looks somewhere, growling questioningly. The girl stands up and puts her fist to her chest. She bravely looks at the monster, even though abrasions and blood are visible on her face. The girl's hand squeezes a watch that emits pink light. She understands that there is a little more in the future, and if she hones her skills a little more, she will be able to bring it to automaticity. The girl's gaze turns to the watch she holds in front of her. The brunette decides that if she wants to correct her mistakes, then this watch is her chance. Shuddering in fear, she turns her head and notices the monster. He bares his teeth and pushes her furiously with his hand. The girl falls, breaking the stone surface below her. She stands up, placing her hands on the ground and furrowing her brows. The girl firmly decides that she cannot lose consciousness, and she cannot die now. The brunette stands up with Hercules behind her. She asks the watch to wind up quickly. She is a child, a girl with gathered brown hair, standing in black clothes and holding a frame with a black ribbon in front of her. She thinks about losing her family. The brunette looks at the gate with the inscription and realizes that she was expelled from the family. The girl looks ahead wearily, trying to hold on. She decides that she must put an end to this persecution by an unknown enemy. Furious Hercules suddenly grabs her head. The prophet's pocket watch is located on a light background, and suddenly a voice is heard asking what kind of behavior this is. A guy wearing black pants, a white shirt, and a blue tie comes into the room. He assumes that Hercules is interfering with the late-night shift of an office worker who desperately wants to leave early. There is surprise on the face of the guy with blue hair and eyes. The girl, whose face is partially covered by the monster's hand, looks at the blue-haired man, assuming that he is Mu-Jin. He looks at her in amazement and points his finger at the girl, suggesting that her name is Jai-Su. He reports that he heard that after graduating from the academy she became a huntress, but does not understand how they met here. The monster presses his hand on Jai-Su's face, who closes her eyes in pain. Hercules lands a strong blow. The monster looks displeased at Mu-Jin, who is scratching the back of his head. The guy makes the assumption that he is annoyed. The fabric on the girl's shoulder is torn, and there are abrasions and blood on her face. The girl thinks about what is impossible, and if she turns back time, she can put an end to this. She thinks about Mu-Jin. He runs towards the monster. The guy swings at Hercules and looks at him furiously. An impact occurs that destroys the wall. Mu-Jin approaches Jai-Su, who is lying on the ground, and rises slightly. He wonders if the girl is okay. Opening her mouth, the main character asks why the guy hides his strength. He sits down opposite the girl, looking at her calmly. Mu-jin explains that life is much easier when you are an ordinary person. Jae-soo looks at the guy in surprise, realizing something. She's going to say something about him. The hand on the clock shows 12 o'clock. At the crossing, the traffic light starts to glow green. Information about this appears on the table. Different people are crossing the road. The table says that you need to look around, check the location of the active dungeon and go to it. A guy in black jeans and white sneakers walks down the street. He is wearing a white t-shirt and a blue jacket, and has a bag with a white belt slung over his shoulder. This is Mu-jin walking while looking at his phone. Notifications appear on the gadget's screen stating that traffic is currently completely stopped due to the emergence of a second-class dungeon in the direction of Sinsadong. He looks at the screen and curls his lips, noting that he can't be late. Mu-jin picks up the phone in surprise. The guy reports that he left the dungeon, and, they say, 3 exits were blocked. The blue-haired man looks to the side, assuming that she sees him. Mu-jin only sees a crowd of strangers. Suddenly, he notices a beautiful girl with brown hair. The guy realizes that it is Jae-soo. The girl is wearing a white t-shirt, a yellow sweater, jeans and white sneakers. A blush appears on Mu-jin's cheeks. He thinks it's weird and maybe it's the makeup. Jae-soo looks very cute and looks at the screen of her native phone. Mu-jin slowly lowers the phone after looking at the girl. He wonders if she has always been this mature. She looks up and smiles at the guy. She says his name. The guys are standing opposite each other. Mu-jin is taller than Jae-soo, and he looks at her in surprise. The guy, confused, assumes that she has arrived. He looks at the beautiful lips of the girl, who says that she wants to say something. Mu-jin looks up dreamily, imagining the engagement ring and him and Jae-soo in their wedding clothes. He assumes this is a confession. The girl takes the main character by the hand. She begins to say something, and he listens to her with anticipation and confusion. Looking sweetly at Mu-jin, Jae-soo asks if he will become her colleague. A yellow-orange sunset can be seen behind a multi-story stylish building. While at home, the blue-haired man silently looks ahead, thinking that, it turns out, when the girl asked to meet, she was not planning to confess, but wanted to invite her to the academy. Mu-jin purses his lips and looks ahead in frustration. He remembers that the girl said that Jae came back, and this is some kind of nonsense. The guy understands that there is nothing strange even in returning to this place where monsters appear from the dungeon. Mu-jin chops carrots, deciding that Jae-soo is really weird today, though. A man in a blue business suit and holding a black bag enters the apartment, exclaiming that Dad is home. Upon entering, he sees his son, Mu-jin. The guy asks if he's back. He answers positively, noting that it is very difficult for him. The father loosens his tie and takes off his jacket, happily looking somewhere. He notes the delicious smell. A man sees the food his son is preparing and realizes that it is kalbachim. Dad looks in surprise at his son, who is looking at him with the same expression on his face, holding a pan in his hands. The man reminds that Mu-jin said that today will be late. He explains that he thought so, but in the end it turned out earlier. The father's expression becomes serious. He is about to say something. He assumes that his girlfriend abandoned his son. While serving food, Mu-jin looks at the guy in confusion, wondering how his father realized this. The man helps himself to some ribs from the pan, and the son explains that the girl asked to become not her boyfriend, but a colleague. The father asks again and wonders if this is how they confess their feelings now. He puts food in his mouth and asks if his son has tried to be more assertive, and notes that it is shameful that the guy is just waiting for recognition. He smiles and shows off, holding a ladle in his hand and stating that his height is 185 centimeters and his body is balanced and muscular. Smiling sweetly, Mu-jin exclaims that he has an outstanding appearance. The guy closes his eyes contentedly and shows the muscles on his arm. He asks whether it is wrong to wait for recognition under such parameters. The father looks at Mu-jin in shock and wonders if the guy on the street walks like that. He notes that his son does not know what modesty is at all. The guy leans on the table, leaning back. Mu-jin says that even Dad admits this, and repeats that the girl really asked to become her colleague. He looks at his son in amazement, wondering what kind of colleague she invited him to become. The guy looks away, holding a piece of food with chopsticks. He reports that he must repay a moral debt. The father closes his eyes and his expression becomes serious. He notes that his son is increasingly talking about things he doesn't know. And he's not the kind of guy who expresses regrets wherever he goes. The man looks at Mujin in surprise and confusion. He reports that Jaisu asked and invited her to the academy. Dad thoughtfully asks about the academy, noting that his son said that Jaisu did a good deed for him. He is interested in what the guy is talking about now. He serves the food and explains what Jaisu offered him. The father asks what she offered him that makes him talk like that. Mujin closes his eyes and maintains a calm expression, telling Dad that everything that doesn't happen is for the best. He listens in surprise to his son, who adds that thanks to his feat this became possible, and Jaisu became the reason for it. Dad, with a puzzled face, puts his hand to his head and declares that he has no words, and there is a reason for the fact that the guy prepared kalbacham today. Mujin confirms this. He looks away embarrassedly, noting that it turned out well now too. Framed certificates hang on the wall. The guy says that he is confident that he can enter a prestigious university and get a good job. On the table, near the vase, there is a photograph of little Mujin hugging a woman with short brown hair. He notes that until this moment he had only thought about a banal future. The guy looks animatedly at his father, explaining that going to the academy also seems like a good option. The main character adds that he is full of confidence that he will do great at the academy. In the ring, tall Mujin with a strong body fights with another guy. The son explains to his dad that when he graduates, he will become a hunter and explore dungeons. Standing in his gear, he looks into the distance. The young man says that this is the kind of adventure he wants. Mujin smiles and his eyes light up. Clenching his fist, he reveals that when he listened to Jaisu, he was a little hesitant at first, but thought it would still be fun, and he was also interested in knowing how strong he is. The father closes his eyes in frustration and exhales. A slight, tired smile appears on his face, and his gaze turns downward. The man looks at the screen of his phone, on the wallpaper of which is that photo of little Mujin and his mother, a woman with brown hair. Dad asks who it is and suggests that it is not his wife's son. A ruined city stands under the blue sky. The day that seemed like the end came when the dungeon opened and monsters poured out of it. Then awakened people arose who killed monsters, and therefore soon began to be called hunters. Silhouettes of people holding weapons in their hands stand against the blue sky. As the number of hunters increased, their levels and abilities were gradually divided into ranks, and organizations and factions emerged. A guy in a turquoise cloak, black boots and gloves holds a sword in his hand, with which he strikes an orange monster. Hunter factions made dungeon exploration and monster hunting more efficient. A girl with blonde hair, in a white suit, black boots and white gloves, pierces a blue monster that looks like a large snake with her weapon. Security has gradually returned to the world. However, the border of the dungeon, where the bloody battle took place at the very beginning of the chaos, is still classified as a crime zone. Entry there is limited. Clouds are visible in the sky, and the city's destroyed houses are falling. Black fasteners run from one wall to the other. Mujin, dressed in black and white trowel, blue jeans, looks up. And opposite him stands Jaisu in black leggings and a red and white jacket, and she has black gloves on her hands. There is devastation around them, and the guy notes that she found such a place, and it is suitable for shelter. The young man calmly looks to the side and says that there are 78 areas where the winding clouds change over time. Pleasant surprise is visible on the girl's face. She assumes that Mujin felt it. There is not a soul in the destroyed city. A certain circle with symbols is drawn on the ground, and there are stones near it. Due to the weather conditions that were provoked by the collisions of the dungeon and the resulting cracks in the dimension, there is always a thick fog within the dungeon boundary. In addition, there are stone fragments scattered everywhere, so this place is difficult to find unless one is a hunter. Mujin looks somewhere thoughtfully, and the girl realizes that even she would have to rely on luck here. She wonders if he noticed the first time. Raising his eyebrows in surprise, Jaisu tries to squeeze out words. The girl does not understand how he could do this, because he does not belong to any guild. Mujin replies that they played and that's enough. The guy smiles contentedly, and a table appears in front of him, where it is written that this is inventory. He notes that the girl even invited him to the hideout. The young man says that he is her colleague and suggests that from now on she needs to be more honest. She looks at Mujin in amazement, asking about the inventory. Jaisu looks at the table and assumes that the guy has awakened. He replies that it seems that this happened when he was 13. The girl is silent and, with her eyes wide open, looks ahead, realizing that usually awakening occurs after 17, and he says that it happened to him at 13. Between the guys there is a table to which they put their fingers to press something. Jai-Soo wonders why he opened the inventory. He rests his hands on his hips and smiles smugly, declaring that the reason is that he has the first level. The girl asks again in surprise and concludes that he has never hunted. Mu-Jin looks somewhere calmly, explaining that he used to live as his father said, and living an ordinary life there is no need to raise the level. The guys stand opposite each other and continue to communicate. Jai-Soo asks about special skills. The guy replies that, perhaps due to waking up early, they are still not installed. The girl asks about potential. Looking contentedly at the table, he replies that it shows that the potential is high. She rejoices at this news. Mu-Jin with a bare torso is in a fighting stance, holding weapons in his hands and boldly looking forward. The girl understands that he doesn't have any special skills yet, but he has high potential. She thinks about the special vest, the weapon, and Mu-Jin in the outfit. Jai-Soo realizes that you can wield every weapon, equip yourself with special equipment, and it would be nice if she was already called a monarchical hunter. She understands that someone will not leave their natural talent, and in order to return to the academy, she must hide Mu-Jin. The girl calmly meets the young man, realizing that he is her secret weapon. She points her finger at the guy who waves. Jai-Soo notes that the greater the power, the better it will be to hide it. He replies that he himself knows, and did not think that she would tell him about it. The girl is interested in how the main character mastered the fighting spirit. He replies that he did it via the internet. Jai-Soo's gaze becomes serious. Mu-Jin folds his hands behind his head, closes his eyes and smiles. He assumes that they are all self-taught. The girl points her finger at him in interest and surprise. She advises not to say such things in front of other students and their families unless you want to become an enemy. He replies that this is also true, explaining that he called the techniques Mu-Jin style and Mu-Jin power. Jai-Soo looks at the guy from under his brows with displeasure, realizing that he really has no shame or conscience. The main character closes his eyes, blushes a little and scratches the back of his head, asking why she is doing this. Suddenly, he notices something and looks to the side in surprise. A red flash flies between the guys. Mu-Jin looks at this in surprise and turns to the girl. She is in a fighting stance, clenching her fists, one of which emits red light. She offers to look at this newcomer. Jai-Soo puts her hand forward, swinging at him. The main character looks ahead in surprise, pointing his finger at the girl. He notes that there is a bit of extra movement when turning. The girl looks at him intently. She strikes again, exclaiming that Mu-Jin should not become arrogant, but need to pull herself together. The blue-haired man looks at his hand in fear, asking why the girl does not control the power. The guy notes that he blocked it, because it was him. Jai-Soo says nothing and looks at him seriously, hearing the guy explain that if it were an ordinary person in his place, he would pass out for 12 weeks. The girl's foot leaves the ground. She jumps and kicks, however, Mu-Jin defends herself from this kick as well. Jai-Soo continues to remain silent and look at the guy carefully. She kicks again, which the guy blocks. He angrily asks the girl to let him say at least a little. Surprise and confusion can be seen in her eyes. Jai-Soo realizes that her body is not listening. The girl comes to the conclusion that during rotation he releases all the power. She silently looks at the guy, stopping. The brunette remembers that Mu-Jin said that he never hunted after waking up. He displeasedly asks if she listens to him now. Jai-Soo doesn't answer and continues to analyze. The girl reflects that despite the fact that she has been a hunter for 20 years and has been making every effort, she has not moved forward a single step. She lands on her feet on the ground, without taking her eyes off the guy, realizing that he very easily blocked all the attacks. White patterned steam begins to emanate from the brunette's mouth. A red and white tiger appears behind her, and fire is concentrated in the girl's fist. It uses second stage expansion. The girl looks ahead carefully, mentally asking Mu-Jin if he can block this. With a satisfied face, Jai-Soo runs towards the guy, raising his fist. A tiger can be seen behind her, and the girl herself opens her mouth, screaming, and rage is visible on her face. She swings her fist, which is blazing with fire. Everything around is illuminated with red and white light, and a long bright beam passes from the ground upward. The brunette lands with one hand on the ground as dust surrounds her. Jai-Soo looks away in surprise, thinking about this level. Suddenly, she notices something and looks up questioningly. There she sees Mu-Jin with his hands raised, one of which he is holding onto a black mount. He flies down, turning over. The guy puts his arms out to the sides. Mu-Jin lands deftly on the floor. He is happily interested in what the girl has to say about this. She is silent and looks at the guy in amazement. She closes her eyes, smiles warmly, and exhales. The girl replies that it was good. The guys decide to go home to Kwanwanuga. They approach a stone gate, behind which is a beautiful Chinese-style building. Jai-Soo walks up the stairs and smiles, holding out her hand. She tells the guy who is following her to come through. Along the corridor there are men in black business suits who synchronously and deeply bow and greet the guys. The girl smiles, and Mu-Jin looks around in surprise, asking if this is a house. She replies that this is the main headquarters of Kwanwaniuk, and, of course, not an ordinary house. From above you can see a beautiful area of the house, with a pond and buildings. The young man asks how much rent costs in such an area. He suggests that it is worth several hundred or even billions. An elderly man with gray hair and a black suit appears behind the surprised girl. He tells the young lady that the previous owner asked to gather in a private training room. She is interested in why this is. With regret, Jai-Soo looks at the man, who reveals that he had no instructions to give her an answer. She upsetly suggests that he is going to perform on his own. Mu-Jin looks at the girl in surprise, asking what is wrong. He notes that she came to visit Asarn, Kwanwan anyway. Jai-Soo looks at the guy nervously, waving his hand in front of his face. She replies that everything is fine, but she just didn't think that as soon as she arrived, Grandpa would want to see her. The girl begins to move forward, pointing her finger somewhere and turning to Mu-Jin. The brunette says to quickly go there. A sign appears in front of the doors, glowing blue, and Jai-Soo stands in front of it. Identity recognition occurs. The girl smiles, and a notification appears on the table that it has been confirmed that she is Jai-Soo. Then, the inscription on the table welcomes the guys, and they begin to move forward. Smirking, the girl looks back at Mu-Jin, announcing that they are coming. The girl looks forward, and he walks next to her, looking at the brunette. Jai-Soo tells her grandfather that she came and wonders if he called. An elderly man with gray hair, a mustache, and a beard frowns and looks forward. He is wearing a black t-shirt, and the relief of muscles is visible on his arms. Mu-Jin looks at this grandfather in surprise. There is confusion in his eyes. Kwanwan looks ahead furiously as his eyes begin to glow red. He exclaims that this guy is that scoundrel. The man's foot leaves the ground. He runs forward, swinging at the guy. The man approaches Mu-Jin, and behind him is a red and black tiger. Grandfather exclaims that it is him. Kwanwan swings his fist, which emits flames. He throws a punch, looking at the guy who deftly dodges. There is a strong blow, and Grandfather looks ahead in confusion. His expression becomes calmer. He notes with displeasure that Mu-Jin dodged without even looking. The guy smiles cheerfully, saying that there are few options when a fist flies at you, especially if it's Kwanwan's fist. He calmly looks at the furious grandfather, who clenches his fist tightly. Mu-Jin wonders if there is a student who could withstand this blow. He angrily exclaims that his Jai-Soo can do this. The blue-haired man takes the confused girl by the shoulders and puts her in front of him. The guy assumes that in this case he should have put her in front of him. Kwanwan exclaims that Mu-Jin looks like a good boy, but he can talk a lot. Suddenly, the man notices something, and his gaze becomes serious and intimidating. He looks at the surprised Mu-Jin. Grandfather towers over the guys, looking arrogantly at the guy. Jai-Soo looks scared and surprised. She realizes that her grandfather is suddenly clenching his fists and wonders why the atmosphere is heating up again. Kwanwan approaches Mu-Jin, calmly staring at her. He orders the guy to undress. The guys clearly didn't expect this. The girl's expression shows shock, and the blue-haired man raises one eyebrow in confusion. Grandfather looks at Mu-Jin defiantly, saying that he will set an example. He shows the muscles on his arm. The second hand is in a different position, also showing muscles. The man takes a pose in which the relief of the muscles of his torso is clearly visible. He states that men talk with their muscles. Kwanwan tells Mu-Jin to see how loud his muscles are talking. He opens his mouth in surprise, and Jai-Soo covers her face with her hands in embarrassment. Grandfather looks around, looking at the guy seriously. He asks how he feels about it. A slight smile appears on Mu-jin's face. He notes that this is a little insufficient. The guy undresses and remains in shoes and shorts. The blue-haired man also stands in different poses, showing off his relief. He states that his muscles speak 3 times louder. Mu-jin exclaims what he can say if this is too much. Frightened Jae-soo shamefully holds her head in her hands. She wonders why this madman agreed. The girl decides that this is madness. Smiling, Mu-jin looks at Kwon-won, informing him that his muscles are not just muscles created by fighting. He smiles easily and notes that this nice guy saw this minor difference. Jae-soo looks at the half-naked grandfather and the guy who are standing close to each other. Kwon-won agrees that fighting alone will not build up such muscles, and this is all thanks to the right diet and training. Mu-jin assumes that the students are jealous. Grandpa touches the guy's arm, asking about his triceps. He replies that he usually presses 10 tons, because it is difficult to find equipment beyond this. Kwon-won touches Mu-jin's torso, asking if there are any other workouts besides muscle training. Men touch each other's muscles in surprise. Blue Hair replies that based on the Kanwon family's basic diet that he learned from Jae-soo, he does workouts that suit his body. Grandfather notes that this is excellent, and this is an insatiable will. His hand ends up on Mu-jin's leg. The man touches his thigh in surprise. He notes that there is no such training to build muscle. Kwon-won says in amazement that he hasn't met such a guy for a long time that he could immediately unravel the secret of his family. Half-naked men hug each other, and the girl closes her eyes in shame. Her face is flushed red. She thinks with horror about her eyes. Pulling away, Kwon-won looks contentedly at Mu-jin, assuming that he is going to become the elder's student. He looks decisively at the man and smiles. The guy replies that this is the main reason why he learned about their family's secret. Mu-jin notes that Kwon's strong will comes from her, so he would consider it an honor to enter her. Kwon-won holds the smiling guy by the shoulders. He says that he will join the family if he, the eldest, allows it. Grandfather replies that he can just call him brother. Jae-soo looks at what is happening in surprise. She understands that she thought that if her grandfather was against it, then she would be in favor. However, they even giggle together. Kwon-won closes his eyes and declares that since they are now brothers, Mu-jin belongs to their family from now on. He smiles contentedly and happily thanks his brother. Jae-soo looks at this with confusion. She is surprised that this happened so quickly. The grandfather holds the guy by the shoulders, and the girl stands a little further from them. Kwon-won is happy that his granddaughter has such a good friend. He reveals that he will keep an eye on Mu-jin. He calmly looks at the man, promising that he will try his best to live up to expectations. He tells his brother to be healthy. Jae-soo looks down upset. She and Mu-jin, who has his hands in his pockets, walk down the corridor. The guy is interested in what happened to her face. He suggests that the reason is that he managed to enter the family easier than she thought. She replies that this is not so, and the fact that this happened makes her happy. Jae-soo admits that she feels like everything is moving very quickly. Smiling, the blue-haired man looks at the sad girl. He asks her why she thinks this way and notes that her brother is the person who can be trusted. The brunette asks him to stop calling him brother all the time. Jae-soo reflects that knowing the future she returned from, now even the slightest change could lead to a completely different outcome. The girl walks forward with a serious expression on her face. She realizes that the butterfly effect is a scary thing. Jae-soo recalls that, as she remembers, in the event that will happen next, her grandfather was a very important figure. The silhouette of her strong grandfather is visible against a dark background. She realizes that the situation has become more complicated because Mu-jin is now involved too. In the girl's gaze one can read seriousness and severity. Jae-soo firmly decides that she needs to prepare more thoroughly. Suddenly, a voice is heard calling the girl. In front of the main character are a guy with light brown hair, as well as a girl whose light brown hair is tied up in a bun. Both keep their strong arms folded over their chests. The guy asks Jae-soo if she is ignoring them. The girl looks at the smiling guys. The guy adds that no matter how busy she is, she needs to say hello to her older brother. She closes her eyes in frustration and exhales. She greets him, adding a question about whether such an answer will do. The girl with the bun mockingly points her finger at Mu-jin and wonders who it is. She assumes that this is Jae-soo's boyfriend. He smiles benevolently, closing his eyes. He cheerfully reveals that he is part of the Kwonwon family from today onwards. The guy says that he is also a friend of Jae-soo and gives his name. He exclaims that if he sees the guys at the academy, he will call them seniors. The girl with the bun covers her mouth with her hand and raises her eyebrows in surprise. She spreads her arms to the sides in displeasure and asks if their family is like a hole into which anyone can fall. A guy with brown hair turns his head to the side, asking if Mu-jin received permission from his father. He suggests that such a fool could hardly. Jae-soo lowers his closed eyes down and says that his grandfather approved of him, so consider him part of the family. She hears a voice asking again. The brunette looks at her brother in surprise, wondering what's wrong. He exclaims that no matter how much Grandpa loves Jae-soo, it's wrong. The girl looks at him upset and asks why he is saying this. She says to deal with him yourself if he doesn't like something. Mu-jin rolls his eyes and purses his lips, holding back a smile. The girl asks her brother what will change if he tells her everything. Irritation appears on the fair-haired guy's face. He grabs the blue-haired man by his clothes and angrily asks why he is laughing. The main character fearfully calls her brother. The girl with the bun looks at him seriously and screams at him to stop. She unhappily wonders if he's going to get involved. He exclaims that Jae-hyun also saw that Mu-jin just laughed at him. The blue-haired man leans back a little, looking at what is happening in alarm. Jae-hyun says that if his brother does not restrain himself, he will be kicked out, and he is angry in vain. They decide to stop arguing and leave. The guys move forward, and the fair-haired guy, passing by Mu-jin, insults him and tells him to watch his speech next time, and also to treat the elder properly. As he leaves, he continues to look after the guy, noting that he should behave this way, whether at the academy or at home. The guy states that he will keep an eye on Mu-jin. He and Jae-soo look at the guys leaving. The guy asks the brunette if all her relatives are like this. Looking ahead indifferently, she replies that they are not that much. Opposite Kwonwon is a fair-haired guy and a man with brown hair, who tells his father that, according to him, he accepted Mu-jin into the family without any reason. Behind the man is an image of a tiger in profile. He exclaims that the authority of the hunters soon led to the creation of 7 powerful families, and their 7 were known among all for their discipline. The man looks at his father, declaring that no one should be allowed into this family so easily. He tells him to cancel the decision. Kwonwon raises his head and closes his eyes. He tells his son that he fully understands his feelings, but one should not think that he, being the center of the family, does not have sensitivity. The man looks confused, as his son replies that he does not have a sense of smell, because he stumbled on the stairs and almost destroyed the house. Kwonwon clenches his fist and glares at his son and grandson, exclaiming that this is different. The brunette agrees and asks to tell him why he liked that guy so much. The old man closes his eyes and lowers his head a little. Mu-jin, with a bare torso, clenches a fist with one hand and reaches somewhere with the other. Kwonwon says that he knows there have been many young people who have been blinded by their family's history, but this is the first time he has seen someone who understands their family's ideals and is aware of their body's abilities. The older man's expression is serious. He asks you to trust his instincts and keep an eye on this guy. There is a tall clock tower around the stone buildings. Mu-jin and many other people walk past her. Some guy in a brown coat looks ahead in surprise, as does a girl standing nearby. They note that this is the same Princess Jae-soo. The main character in a white jacket walks next to a blue-haired guy with a black jacket. People wonder who is next to her. Someone answers that they don't know, and perhaps it's the escort. Mu-jin is surprised by these words and people's reactions. He understood that the Kopek piece was famous, but he didn't think it was that famous. The guy looks at the crowd of people walking around the area. Mu-jin thinks that after looking around, he realized that almost no one stands out here. His gaze is focused and attentive. The young man decides that vigilance will not be unnecessary. Some girl in light clothes approaches Mu-jin and falls screaming. He looks around in surprise, noticing this. The guy quickly moves from his place. A girl with pink hair falls near him. She rests her hand on the ground. The girl pushes off with her foot and stands up. The pink-haired girl puts her arms out to the sides. She is wearing a short orange skirt, a yellow and white hoodie, and a pink and white vest. She stands there and looks forward. The girl opens her mouth and exhales with relief. She turns to Mei-jin, noting that the poor girl almost fell and he just dodged. With a calm smile, he tells her that she should have gone to a regular school if she is so afraid of getting hurt. The guy doesn't understand what it means to be poor, because if she was able to pass the entrance exam, then she is already 4 times stronger than an ordinary person. She stands in front of the surprised Mu-jin, placing her hands on her hips. She notes that it was said by someone who is walking near the princess of the Kanwan family. The girl assumes that he won't put his money where his mouth is. Mu-jin replies that he didn't do anything, and he was also accused. She closes her eyes and exhales. She notes that this is not a lie, so this topic can be closed. The girl extends her hand to him, informing him that she is from the Seo family, and her name is Yu Young. A cute girl with pink hair and eyes looks at Mu-jin, holding out her hand in front of the guy. She explains that she is responsible for the beauty and cuteness of their family. The young man leaves with an indifferent face, leaving behind a confused girl. She offers to shake hands, because the guy is not bad. And when he leaves, she screams that she didn't finish speaking. Yu Young runs up to Mu-jin's side. She assumes that this is his image, the image of a bad guy. He replies that the girl watches a lot of dramas. She clings to the young man's hand and looks at him pitifully. Yu Young asks him to at least say his name. Mu-jin disgruntledly removes her hand and says his name, saying that he will go if that's all. But when the guy says the last word, a fire appears next to him, at which he looks in amazement. From the fiery flash, a voice is heard that says that he is that Wom. The guy who appears bares his teeth. Mu-jin covers his face with his hands due to the bright fire in front of him. The flame decreases and a guy in black clothes, with long red hair, is visible from it, who sits on one knee, resting his hand on the floor. He glares at Mu-jin, furrowing his brows and calling him a worm. The guy hits the ground with his fist so that cracks form there. He tells Mu-jin to fall. He looks in surprise at the guy who has appeared and asks about what he suddenly has to fall from. The young man's gaze turns to the side. Yu Young is standing there, also looking at Mu-jin. He looks at the guy cheerfully, pointing his finger at the girl. He assumes that the guy likes her. The long-haired man glares at him, clenching his fist. Mu-jin notes that they look alike and assumes it's because of the hairstyle. He tells him to shut up. Mu-jin grins carefree, realizing that he is just a quick-witted fool. Yu Young clenches her fists and brings them closer to her chest. She looks at the long-haired guy with alarm. She shouts that Woon-gil should stop this. The girl declares that this is not necessary, even though she is so attractive. A blush appears on Un-gil's face. He shouts angrily, noting that Mu-jin was already going around with the princess of the Gongwon family. The guy raises his fist and assumes that now he has reached Yu Young. He asks again in amazement. However, Un-gil does not want to listen to anything and runs towards the young man, raising his fist and putting his other hand forward. Mu-jin just looks at this with confusion. He takes the confused girl by the shoulders and places her in front of him. Un-gil did not expect this and now looks questioningly at the guy's actions. He stops, breaking with his ankle boots. People around are watching what is happening in surprise. There is a large fiery flash. The fist of the angry Un-gil crashes into the stone surface. He smashes the tiles on the ground with his hand, insulting Mu-jin again. The joyful young man still holds the worried Yu Young in front of him. He asks who attacks so suddenly. The young man assumes that there are no rules here. Woon-gil grits his teeth and looks down, holding back his anger. Mu-jin smiles cheerfully and lets the girl go. He notes that he understands that a guy wants to look cool in front of a girl he likes, but he shouldn't act so recklessly. Mu-jin assumes that they are already a little on edge and suggests not to waste their energy, because the exam is coming soon. Yu Jong looks at one point in surprise and wary, wondering what kind of fool he is. Blue Hair stands in front of Un-gil, who is still in the position with his fist in the ground. The young man explains to him that even if he is going to attack, he needs to look around. Mu-jin's face shows calmness and joy. Smiling, he says that an apology will be enough since no one was hurt. Un-gil looks at him sternly, eyebrows furrowed, and Mu-jin's eyes become frighteningly attentive. He asks if the guy will apologize. He just curls his lips. The blue-haired man puts his hand forward, as if defending himself from the fire that has appeared. Un-gil gets up and starts to walk away, leaving behind flames from his hand. He exclaims with displeasure that they will see each other again in the exam, and also orders Mu-jin not to touch Yu-young again. He exhales and looks after the guy in shock. He realizes that he didn't even apologize and assumes that he himself is starring in the drama. The girl standing nearby looks warily at the young man, wondering how in such a short period of time he figured out to use her as a shield. Yu-young looks at Mu-jin, who is emitting blue light. She realizes that he has an unusual aura, although she thought that he was just the princess's henchman. The girl looks around in surprise, noticing that the young man is no longer there. He stays away from her, telling her that he will go, and they will see each other again. Yu-young angrily exclaims that he stretched her cardigan and must fix it. He just smiles, looks sweetly at the girl and explains that his friend called him, so he and Yu-young will see each other later. She turns in surprise at the crowd of people, where a voice comes from, suggesting that they used to be close to her. The girl pulls her hood over her head and runs towards the crowd, exclaiming that she must prepare for the exam and asking people to move. Near the road there is a large white building, next to which there is a stadium. A voice comes from the academy saying that they will start the exam with a test of strength and go down the list. Jae-soo puts on her gloves and looks ahead anxiously, wondering if Mu-jin is doing a good job. She doesn't think he can fail. The girl stretches her legs, realizing that, however, the young man's character always attracts trouble. She looks forward seriously, and the brunette is dressed in a white jacket with the number 1 and 983. Jae-soo thought he was a diligent and kind student. Orange light can be seen in the windows of the buildings. The voice asks if he wants her to find the 100-year-old king. Mu-jin stands opposite the main character. The guy notes that she is popular at the academy, and should use her authority and get something from it. She suggests that for this reason he told his grandfather that it was an honor to join the family. The blue-haired man calmly looks at Jae-soo and agrees, noting that this is why she came to him. The young man assumes that she has a good reason and says that even if she turned back time, she needs him. The brunette looks at Mu-jin carefully, telling her that she knows, but also knows something else. The girl throws a punch, however, he dodges. Jae-soo exclaims that she doesn't need him who hasn't proven his strength. The guy suddenly grabs her hand. He deflects the attack and throws the girl to the floor. Mu-jin explains that he is already used to being suddenly attacked. The guy above looks at her, wondering if this is enough for confirmation. Surprised, Jae-soo, lying on the floor, silently looks at the young man. She wonders how he hid such a character. During the exam, Jae-soo looks ahead indifferently. She stands on the field, holding gloves in her hand, and behind the girl lies a large weight. A voice announces that number 16, Jae-soo, has passed the strength test. Mu-jin looks at the piece of paper puzzled, noting that it has number 530, which means it is at the very end. A dissatisfied Yu-young stands next to him and Un-gil, who looks at the guy. The guys are on the same team, and the girl wonders why she is between these two again. The red-haired man smirks at Mu-jin and states that he is pretending to be calm, but there is no point in bluffing. Several large weights lie next to each other. The guy is told that until now the stone has not been raised above the 5th level, and no one except Jae-soo has been able to cross this mark. Un-gil smiles and looks ahead, exclaiming that this is just for now. A voice announces that number 409, Un-gil, is now being published. He looks ahead seriously. His hand grabs the handle of the weight. He lifts the stone high, and his face reflects that it is very difficult for him. People exclaim that this guy is great, and he has raised to the 6th level, as expected from the Chalk family. The red-haired man grins and looks up smugly. He says that now this scoundrel must definitely understand that it's better not to mess with him. He, with a sweet expression on his face, claps his hands. The voice calls number 503, Yu-young. The girl tightens the laces on her hoodie. She lifts the weight with ease. People exclaim in admiration that this is the 7th level. They note that she is very fragile and sweet. The guy with brown hair smiles and exclaims that this is cool, and behind him stands a drooping Un-gil. Yu-young looks ahead in surprise, stretching his hands. Some suggest that her family's main talent is strength. Someone notes that if she understood this, she would break. Some say you can't ignore your ancestry. The girl takes her place, proudly placing her hands on her hips and smiling. Standing next to her is an upset Un-gil and a surprised Mu-jin. Yu-young exclaims that you can't show off a body like that. Blue-haired agrees and notes that it was not bad. The girl frowns a little and asks again, reminding her that she said that she had raised the 7th level, and this is equal to 10 cars. Mu-jin looks ahead calmly, thinking that 1 level is equal to 5 tons, then 7 levels is approximately 35 tons. Yu-young laughs and declares that he will fulfill the young man's wish if he can do better. The guy's gaze becomes cold and serious. The voice calls number 530, Mu-jin. He begins to move forward, looking back at the disgruntled girl with pink hair. The guy says he accepts her challenge and asks if she has anything else to say. A man in a white shirt, black pants, and a red vest stands in front of the weights and holds a tablet in his hand. Mu-jin approaches the stones. He looks at them, thoughtful. The guy sees 3 stones. He turns his head and sees another 3 weights, guessing that this is the 7th level. Mu-jin looks at the examiner and asks where level 10 is. The man looks at the guy in shock, asking again and wondering if he's joking. The examiner looks at the screen where information about Mu-jin is located. He replies that he is absolutely serious. The man sees that the guy is from the Kanwan family. However, he is not of the same blood. The examiner looks forward seriously and points his finger somewhere. He reports that the 10th is at that end. The man asks if the young man understands that no matter what the level is, if he fails, he will not pass the exam. Mu-jin begins to walk around the arena. People don't understand what's wrong with him, and also note that all broadcasts have stopped. The young man stops near the weights. Someone is wondering if anyone is streaming on the sly. Mu-jin calmly looks at the stone. His hand grabs the handle of the weight. He looks forward seriously, counting. The guy groans and is about to pick up the stone. The young man exhales calmly. With an indifferent expression on his face, Mu-jin lifts the weight. The examiner looks at it in shock and cannot believe what he brought up. The guy smiles easily and looks forward. The people watching move back a little, and surprise and fear are visible on their faces. Mu-jin's knees bend. Suddenly, he begins to squat. People are amazed that this guy even does squats. The alarmed examiner waves his hand and asks him to stop. Mu-jin throws a stone on the floor. He smiles happily and wonders if this is normal. The examiner sits down near the stone and places his hand on it. He keeps her on it for a while, checking something. The man's face is serious and concentrated. He realizes that there is nothing wrong with the stone. Mu-jin watches this calmly. The examiner is thinking about this guy, number 530. The young man walks back, and people make way for him. Woon-gil and Yu-young look at the 3rd member of their team in shock. The girl opens her mouth in surprise. She looks at the joyful Mu-jin standing in front of her. He exclaims that he remembered the wish. He calmly looks at the furious Yu-young, who points her finger at him. The young man asks what he should wish for. The girl angrily shouts that he is a swindler, and, stuttering, suggests that if he thinks of something strange, she will not leave it like that. Mu-jin smiles and laughs, saying that he will think longer. A message appears on his phone screen about armoring the item, Yu-young. The young man looks contentedly at the angry girl and wonders whether they will argue next time. She exclaims that they won't. Looking desperately at Mu-jin, she tells him to finish the entire exam. The guy runs forward, bending slightly, and some red object flies in the air. He throws punches and red objects fly forward. People, including Yu-young, look at what is happening in shock. The young man touches his shoulder with his hand, and behind him there is a device and a deflated red object. People say in surprise that Mu-jin broke not one specially made mechanism, but 2. Someone asks if he is just doing the right thing. A crowd of people look at each other and wonder if all awakened people are like this. Yu-young looks forward in horror, his mouth open. She understands that if you look only at strength, then you can call him a monarch, and this is already boring. The voice announces that there is a speed test next, and explains that if someone's number is called, then his group will prepare. Mu-jin stands on the path with his hands on his hips, and the guys nearby are warming up. There is an assumption that there are 10 levels here, and the question of whether it is possible to simply run without passing the baton to others. Someone is wondering how many views there will be if this is filmed. The young man sits down, preparing to run. He wonders how he will cope. A surprised crowd of people looks at this. A guy with red hair in a black and white jacket, and a girl with brown hair in a brown vest, stand next to each other, looking in amazement at what is happening and holding the phones they are filming with in front of them. Yu Yung looks around, surprised by something. The girl sees Mu-jin running behind her and doesn't understand why he's doing this. She looks at the young man warily and wonders what he decided to do. The girl assumes that he wants to do a great race. Yu Yung looks at the blue-haired man, whose face is focused and drops of sweat are rolling down it. The girl notices his face and realizes that he seems to be having a hard time. She grits her teeth and runs forward, displeasedly deciding that she would argue if she knew. The voice announces that Yu Yung ran in 30 seconds, and Mu-jin in a minute and 30 seconds. The angry girl comes up to him and points her finger. She asks the surprised guy why he ran so slowly. He wonders if this is not possible. The girl angrily exclaims that this is impossible. Yu Yung looks down seriously and remains silent, wondering if the guy is hiding his strength and deciding to find out further. Many black balls fall from above. The girl dodges, looking at them in fear. She realizes that they are bouncers with steel balls. Yu Yung avoids these balls and realizes that this is quite simple, but it is a good test of dexterity. She looks around in surprise, wondering what Mu-jin is planning this time. He moves awkwardly, hitting himself and looking ahead. It emits blue light. The guy's foot, shod in brown boots, stops. A voice announces that number 530, Mu-jin, has passed. He stands in the arena and awkwardly scratches his head, and people watch what is happening. The guy asks again, noting that he was told that if you hit everyone, you will pass. People are amazed to suggest that he is not a person, but perhaps a troll. Mu-jin exhales, looking ahead. He scratches the back of his head and closes his eyes, noting that it's hard to hide his strength. Yu Yung replies that he definitely has a lot of modesty. The young man opens his eyes and joyfully looks at the girl, exclaiming that he remembered about the wish. Mu-jin asks her to give him a speed star. Speed star is an S-class development material. Yu Yung raises one eyebrow and puts her hands on her hips. She states that even if she had a star, she wouldn't give it to her, because it's a very rare thing. A young man waves his phone in front of an angry girl. He says he recorded their argument and suggests that their family is not throwing around empty promises. Yu Yung is clearly annoyed by his behavior. The voice announces that the first stage of the exam is completed. A clear sky is visible behind the high stone buildings. The voice continues its announcement. Someone notes that they should have been a little quieter. Jae-soo holds her hands folded in front of her chest and exhales heavily, closing her eyes. She reports that she has already heard a rumor about the 10th level. The girl stands opposite Mu-jin and Yu Yung, and behind Jae-soo, leaning on the aisle, stands another girl. The brunette points out that you can't really instill character into a person. The blue-haired man looks forward in amazement and asks who it is behind him. Jae-soo remembers the girl Ai who stands behind, looking at the guys. She says she forgot to introduce her. A girl with a black bob, pure black eyes and in classic Japanese clothes looks at the guys. Jae-soo explains that this is her friend, Hai-jin from the Chin family. Mu-jin looks at her, thoughtful, and Yu Yung stands nearby, looking ahead in amazement. The brunette explains that the Chin family is one of the 7 families, just like theirs. She introduces Mu-jin to her friend. He waves his hand in a friendly manner, smiling. The girl assumes that they were set up. Hai-jin looks at the guys seriously and remains silent, and Jae-soo is going to say why she gathered them here. Her friend is holding a beautiful black and white weapon. She moves forward, grabbing it with both hands to reach it. Mu-jin looks at the girl warily and surprised. She approaches him, drawing her weapon and putting it in front of the guy. She looks straight into his eyes and Jae-soo explains that Hai-jin wanted to talk to Mu-jin. A sword flashes in front of the young man's face. The girl waves her weapon. She looks clearly at the guy. He jumps back, turning over. Mu-jin lands on the ground. Yu Yung looks at the guy in shock, asking what he is doing. She looks furiously and points her finger at the young man, who waves his hand maliciously and smiles. The girl exclaims that she knew he would shy away, because he always does that. He replies that even if he had been hit, he would not have died. He looks at Hai-jin kindly, smiling. Mu-jin notes that the girl is sharp and strong, and her movements are very sweeping. The guy assumes that she asked to meet him because he is Jae-soo's friend. She looks at him coldly and remains silent. She runs past the guy, looking at him. The girl attacks, trying to land several blows. However, Mu Jin dodges them all. Jai-Su freezes and looks at what is happening in surprise, remembering these movements. Standing next to her is Yu Young, who fearfully asks why the guy is behaving this way. The young man puts his palms in front of his chest, creating a green light between them. Yu Young exclaims in displeasure that he is copying her abilities. Jai-Su looks at the surprised girl and asks if she used them in front of Mu Jin. She replies that she did it in the morning. She remembers using this technique and there would be yellow and pink light around her. The girl exclaims that she did it for a second. The brunette looks at her calmly, explaining that Mu Jin's potential is immeasurable, but he cannot use his abilities masterfully. The guy jumps out of his seat and flies forward. He is opposite Hai Jin and smirks. Jai-Su notes that, however, in order to dodge the sword, this is enough for him. The young man puts one hand forward, clenches the other into a fist and swings it. Everything around Mu Jin glows blue and green. He throws a punch and his fist slams into something. Yu Young covers his mouth with his fist and watches in fear. Hai Jin's silhouette emerges from the dust. She sits down and presses her sword into the ground. The girl touches the weapon, noticing cracks on it. Mu Jin smiles and extends his hand to her, suggesting that she is a little late in greeting her. The young man says that he is pleased to meet you. He reveals that he heard that Jai-Su has failed many times. She doesn't say anything, but just looks at the young man. Mu Jin notes that she has an emotionless face and a completely different charm. Jai-Su, standing behind, is seething with anger, angrily suggesting that the guy has become completely insolent. He extends his hand to Hai Jin, offering to fight more next time. She looks at the hand in surprise and agrees. The guys shake hands. Jai-Su's voice is heard greeting someone and noting that they haven't seen each other for a long time. She assumes that the man has not changed at all. Behind Mu Jin's father's house there is a beautiful yellow sky. He notes that while they haven't seen each other, the girl's flattery has increased and tells her to move on. There are many delicious dishes on the table. The man explains that Mu Jin prepared it all and asks the girl to try it. Jai-Su, dressed in a white shirt, sits at the table and tastes the food, realizing that it is delicious. The girl quickly begins to gobble up the food. She holds chopsticks in one hand and a spoon in the other. The man calmly looks at the girl, who fearfully covers her mouth with her hand, and Mu Jin sits next to him, burning with awkwardness. His dad reports that he is glad that Jai-Su liked the food so much. She apologizes and asks if she embarrassed him. He smiles and replies that it's not much, but there's no need to worry, it's better to just eat. The girl looks at her interlocutor with interest and says that she didn't know that Mu Jin was also a good cook. The man replies that she can always come whenever she wants to eat. The young man calmly looks in front of him and mentally asks the girl if she likes him. She looks at him in amazement, and there are crumbs of food left near her mouth. Jai-Su suggests that Mu Jin can use telepathy. She notes that he has food in his mouth and talking is a little awkward. The girl looks at him intently. With a sweet look, she wipes her mouth with a napkin and tells Mu Jin's father that he doesn't have to worry about the academy. The mental youth tells her that he is against her plans. Jai-Su promises the man that she will look after his son until he graduates. Mu Jin looks joyfully at her father, and the girl covers her mouth with her hands. The young man reports that she will soon give him a 100-year-old king. Dad replies that this is very joyful. And the girl laughs and asks the guy to be a little more modest, because she will still need to get him. Mu Jin looks to the side and explains to the brunette that they can go if she's finished eating. The father agrees, saying that he will wash the dishes. She puts food in her mouth and fearfully realizes that it seems they will go to his room. The guys enter a beautiful, clean room with a sofa, a desk and chair, a computer and books. The first to enter is the lower Jai-Su, followed by a young man who tells the girl to settle down. She can't believe that this is a men's room. She closes her eyes and mentally asks herself to pull herself together. The brunette turns and points her finger at Mu Jin, asking him to tell her about the abilities he recently used. Jai-Su assumes that he looked at the girl from the Seo family and just repeated it. He smiles contentedly and scratches the back of his head, wondering if she noticed. The young man notes that he thought that she would not find out. The girl again repeats the question of how he did it. The beautiful and sweet Yu Young stands and turns around with her hands in her pockets. Mu Jin explains that she seemed different to him, and he decided to try to imitate her. He raises his hand, over which blue drops appear, and a surprised Jai Su stands opposite. The young man declares that it is simple, and she can do it too. She exclaims that she usually can't. She folds her arms over her chest and lowers her head, closing her eyes. The girl realizes that if she had not taken him to the academy with her, his talent would have simply been thrown into the trash. The brunette opens her eyes and looks down carefully, remembering the deceased. Jai Su remembers the moment when the silhouette of a man was visible, sitting on one knee, with his hand on the floor, flames emanating from him, and there was dust all around. The girl understands that she was able to see that moment. It was the silhouette of Mu Jin, dressed in an office suit. The young man smiles and explains that for this reason he decided to do a little training in the morning. He puts out his hand, over which the blue drops disappear. A bright flame appears above the palm. Keeping it, he happily looks at Jai Su, noting that it is fire magic. A voice is heard calling the master. Kwon-won sits in the lotus position with his hands on his knees as steam emanates from his body. The voice suggests that the man is practicing fire magic. He continues to sit, blazing with fire, and red spots are visible on his back. He looks around seriously, asking what's the matter. There is a fair-haired guy standing there who had previously quarreled with Mu Jin. His name is Jai Chiol. Covenvan turns his head slightly towards the guy standing behind him. He is interested in why the young man will come here. Jai Chiol asks again and, laughing, says that he came to practice. The older man begins to emit more fire. He asks in surprise whether this is true and asks the guy to visit him more often. He agrees with grandfather. The young man adds that he wants to say something else. Suddenly, the door opens and a joyful Mu Jin enters, loudly calling for his brother. He stands opposite Kwon-won, and they begin to chat while Jai Chiol stands aside, watching in surprise. The man exclaims that his younger brother has come, and also that he heard that he raised the 10th level. He replies that this is all the basic level. Hand rests on the guy's shoulder. Covenvan notes that you shouldn't skip training anyway, and suggests going and training a little. He looks away and asks Jai Chiol if he wanted to say something. He looks at his brother with displeasure and replies that this is not so, and he will return. A dumbbell appears near Mu Jin, which he looks at very joyfully, and the fair-haired guy leaves, looking back at him. Blue-haired exclaims that it looks like a 10-ton dumbbell, and it's amazing. And grandfather notes that this guy passed the test of strength. Jai Chiol walks away and curls his lips in annoyance as he hears them talk about how you can't train this form without these stones, and they are perfect for this kind of training. Kwon-won does an exercise, lifting a dumbbell with his hand, and looks at Mu Jin, reporting that he heard that he easily lifted the 10th level, but was exhausted in other exams. He smiles and does the same exercise. The young man laughs and suggests that he overdid it from the very beginning, intending to say something else. Grandfather looks at him calmly and interrupts his speech, declaring that his eyes cannot be deceived. The man is interested in what the young man is up to, since he is hiding his strength. He continues to smile and is silent. Covenvan looks at the dumbbell he is lifting and assumes that it is some way to get a high score on the exam. The man notes that if this is not his method, there is no point. The young man explains that he simply endured, because he is still in search of his own. Covenvan looks carefully in front of him, thinking. He purses his lips. The man smiles and puts his hands on his hips, exclaiming that the young man is very diligent. He happily thanks his brother. He looks at Covenvan and adds that he has one request anyway. Grandfather asks to speak unless he asks for dumbbells. Mu Jin states that he wants to learn the firefighting style. He looks at the guy in confusion and wonders if he is talking to him about fighting and not about magic. The young man's expression becomes more serious, and he explains that if he doesn't like it, then nothing can be done, but he wanted to learn it exclusively from his grandfather. He still stands still, showing no emotion. The man looks ahead, thinking. His hand is enveloped in fire. He clenches it into a fist and grins, informing him that his fire magic is a little different. Mu Jin looks calmly at Covenwan. He makes different movements with his hands, leaving a fiery trail. There is surprise in the young man's eyes. An elderly man puts his palms out in front of him and creates a circle of fire, looking seriously to the side. Concentrating, he creates a fireball between his palms and holds it above his head and in front of his chest. Mu Jin watches this with interest. Kwon-won approaches the guy and asks what's wrong with his face. He assumes that the young man is disappointed. He replies that this is not so. He puts out his hand and a blue light appears above his palm. Mu-jin stares at the blue light without stopping and reports that he just seems to have found a suitable method for himself. The grandfather watches the actions of the young man in surprise, who says that, as expected, his brother's wisdom helped. He purses his lips and thinks. Kwon-won smiles widely and lifts his head, stating that the more he gets to know Mu-jin, the smarter he seems. A voice is heard asking what the guy said. Mu-jin stands in front of a table where a brown-haired man, Jae-cheol's father, sits and asks him to repeat it again. The young man explains that he became the master's student in order to inherit the style of firefighting. The man closes his eyes and puts his fingers to his forehead, sighing heavily. He looks at the guy, who folds his hands behind his back, and admits that he thought he was not smart, but in fact he turned out to be cunning. Mu-jin thanks him for his praise. The brunette frowns and looks at him seriously, reporting that Jae-soo told him that he asked her to get the 100-year-old king. He notes that the young man only took 20th place in the exam ranking. He raises his eyebrows, looking at the man in surprise, and wonders if he didn't notice at all. The brunette looks ahead indifferently and asks confusedly what Mu-jin means. The guy blushes a little and looks at the man questioningly. He begins to look at some papers, displeasedly agreeing to look for textbooks for him. Mu-jin asks him to also give a guarantee and an official notice since he has allowed it. The expression on his face shows carelessness. The young man assumes that his reputation within the family is not very good, because he became the master's student. There are guys standing on the territory of the house, some of whom are communicating with each other. A girl with pink hair and a guy with gray hair look contemptuously at each other, swearing. Mu-jin assumes that the relationship between the brothers themselves is also strained, although that's all he knows. The man's judgmental eyes, visible from behind his glasses, look at the young man. He states that Mu-jin is talking in vain. He closes his eyes and smiles contentedly, saying that he thought the man would say no. The young man expresses his hope that no trouble will arise because of him. Mu-jin walks past the other guys. Suddenly, a voice makes the guy call him broad. He looks around in surprise upon hearing this. Jae-cheol approaches him with his arms crossed over his chest. He notes that it's amazing that Mu-jin has already become famous for raising the 10th level. The guy declares that this is an amazing power and asks permission to look. The guys stand in a room opposite each other. Jae-cheol lowers his head, looking at his palm as a red light appears above it. Mu-jin notices a red light appearing around him, realizing that this is usually used for fighting. He looks up in frustration, thinking that this annoying guy won't be able to get out. The blue-haired man looks at his brother in confusion, holding the phone in his hand. He wonders if he can call the teacher. He angrily asks what kind of teacher such a fool like him could have. Mu-jin looks at the fair-haired guy in surprise, realizing that he doesn't know, and informing him that his teacher is the young man's grandfather. Jae-cheol glares at him and tells him not to joke. His hand grabs the blue-haired man's clothes. He smirks at the calm Mu-jin and wonders if he knows what is best for training. The guy says it's a break. He opens his mouth in surprise. Jae-cheol smiles evilly and narrows his eyes, wondering how long Jae-soo will help him. Suddenly, increasing laughter is heard. Mu-jin looks away and closes his eyes, laughing. The young man apologizes, explaining that he has a very funny way of speaking, which resembles the speech of a child. He approaches the guy, suggesting that he has gone crazy. Suddenly, a hand covers Jae-cheol's mouth, not allowing him to finish the sentence that Mu-jin wants to die. The blue-haired man strikes so hard that the guy falls to the floor. He looks at Jae-cheol with alarm and fearfully wonders if it hurts, noting that it should be normal, because the blow wasn't that strong. He looks at the young man with horror, and his mouth is still clamped. Mu-jin asks about what Jae-cheol is muttering. He removes his hand from the guy's mouth. The young man looks at him in alarm, realizing that he almost killed him. He frowns and angrily exclaims that he will kill Mu-jin. There is suddenly a strong hand on his throat. The blue-haired man looks at his brother with a smile, without removing his hand and informing him that he understands. He wonders if the young man has the courage to die, other than the courage to kill. With one hand, the guy presses on Jae-cheol's throat, and with the other he reaches out to the table that appears. Mu Jin says that all this time he was interested in something. The fair-haired guy watches his actions. He looks away in alarm, and the blue-haired man finishes his sentences, explaining that he was always interested in whether he could enter someone else's inventory. Suddenly Mu Jin remembers something. Smiling, he awkwardly scratches the back of his head and notes that he only has one window in his inventory. He leans over the frightened guy, offering him to give him some of his equipment. The young man squeezes Jai Chiol's neck tighter and reasons that then a lot of blood will be shed, and cleaning up will be a big hassle if the place is not prepared before the murder. The fair-haired guy is trembling with fear, his eyes bulging, and sweat is rolling down his face. Mu Jin looks at him carefully, thoughtful. The guy swings his arms and starts pressing his fingers on his brother. The veins in his neck are bulging. The shocked Jai Chiol is pierced by red and white rays. Blue-haired stands in front of him and notes that it seems that he, too, is simply wasting his strength, since he is still holding on. Suddenly, the young man notices something. Mu Jin notices a light yellow stain on the guy's pants. Jai Chiol stutters and asks to let him go, promising that he will not appear in front of him again. Tears appear in the young man's eyes, and the blue-haired man's hand approaches his neck. There is horror in the eyes of the fair-haired guy. He exclaims that he was wrong about everything. Mu Jin looks at his wet pants, and he asks to let go. A video of Jai Chiol in this state appears on the phone screen, declaring that he will do whatever the young man orders. He notes that he is stubborn. Jai Su looks at the phone screen in alarm, raising her eyebrows. She wonders if the guy went too far. Mu Jin stands next to the girl, holding his hands in his pockets. He asks what he could do and explains that he was trying to restore order. The brunette notes that Jai Chul is such a fool. She gives the phone to a satisfied Mu Jin, telling him that he won't bother him anymore and they should go. The guys come to the academy, where a voice is heard that says that first they need to focus on the battle of ranks. Mu Jin notices someone and screams joyfully. He is interested in whether they have received all the notification of enrollment. Standing in front of him are Hai Jin and Yu Young, who exclaims that of course they all got the notice. The guy lowers his head, smiling at the short pink-haired girl, who clenches her fists and gets angry. He wonders if she will not lag behind him, even if he wins the battle of ranks. She exclaims furiously that she was going to say that. Jai Su looks closely at Mu Jin talking to the girl. He assumes Yu Young will be behind him. She shouts that he should shut up and notes that he can go cry or get drunk after losing. A guy with red hair and eyes, as well as another boy with brown hair and glasses, look at Mu Jin. The guy with glasses asks if he organized a harem for himself and why this scoundrel walks around like that. The second explains that he raised the 10th level in the exam and is surprised that his friend did not know this. He opens his mouth in surprise, and another person walks behind the guys. The young man with glasses says that this is only on one side, and his friend advises him to first achieve this himself, and then talk. The guy walking behind the guys has light brown hair and the same eyebrows that he frowns, and he is dressed in a white sweater and a gray-brown jacket. Mu Jin and Jai Su look around because they notice him. The young man asks who it is, and the brunette replies that she knows him, and it's Yong San from the Tiger Guild. He asks what is wrong with him and suggests that they have some kind of disagreement. The brunette replies that it is the young man who is making enemies for himself, and explains that she and he have been friends since childhood, like Un Gil and Yu Young. Woon Gil and Jun San walk forward with angry expressions on their faces, and behind the guys there is a flame burning. She notes that a whole team of enemies is coming. Mu Jin looks around, grinning and thinking about something. The guys go forward, and he smiles contentedly, sarcastically noting that they can collect more. She replies that he has a complex character. Yu Young turns around in surprise as she hears her name being called. Mu Jin approaches her and raises his hand to touch the terribly frightened girl. He says that there is a bug on her shoulder, and Yu Young just screams in response. The guy removes his hand and smiles widely, saying that this is a joke, and she clenches her fists, swinging at him. The girl says not to mock him and asks if he needs to be beaten. Jun Sang looks ahead, brow furrowed angrily. The guy watches the interaction between Yu Young and Mu Jin. He imagines that the young man says that she is stupid, and she replies that she is very naive. The girl screams that Mu Jin didn't apologize. People go to the stands and sit there to watch the arena. The voice welcomes dear applicants and informs them to begin ranked battles of the first semester. A group of 4 guys also sit down, everyone stands calmly, and Jai-Soo leans his body forward and fingers. Mu-jin assumes that it will be simple, and the brunette advises him not to throw around words just like that. In the stands, 3 rows above the guys, sits a guy with light brown hair holding a phone to his ear. He reports that the young man is sitting, laughing and chatting, but he doesn't have much time left. With a slight smile, he looks away. The guy answers positively when asked if everything worked out. He holds a tablet in front of him and looks at it, grins and says that this is too much for him. The name Mu-jin is written on the diagram. The guy notes that he has no need to get his hands dirty with his blood. The voice announces that now there will be a 3rd stage, Mu-jin and Min-young. Blue-haired gets up from his seat, asks Jai-Soo to leave him some popcorn and says that they will be back soon. She looks at the young man a little worriedly and asks him to be careful. Mu-jin walks up to the arena and waves, exclaiming that they shouldn't worry and he'll be there soon. The guy takes 1 step. Jai-Soo realizes that the first opponent is Min-young. He takes another step, and the girl thinks that this man is a follower of the Bloody Guild. Mu-jin looks to the side with a smile, warming up. She realizes that the young man is very balanced. The opponent, a guy with black hair, wearing a white tight-fitting t-shirt and black pants, adjusts his belt. This guy is a top 10 applicant. Jai-Soo looks at the arena seriously, thinking about Min-young's bloody ability, because almost the match will be over in the blink of an eye. He extends his hand to Mu-jin and smiles, saying that he is pleased to meet you. He clarifies whether the guy has reached the 10th level. The young man offers to arrange a spectacular fight. Mu-jin also extends his hand and smiles, agreeing and noting that he, too, is counting on Min-young. The young man invites him to keep in touch in the future, because they are the same age. The guys shake hands. The black-haired man smiles, closing his eyes. A voice announces that the match is starting. The guys jump, disappearing from their seats. Mu-jin flies towards his opponent, putting out his leg to strike. He makes a fist and punches, creating a bright light. The guy's look becomes surprised. Behind the confused Mu-jin is his opponent, who smiles happily. He states that it is an amazing power, as expected from a disciple of the Kwon family's eldest. He raises his hand again. He tries to strike, however, Min-young is deftly lost. You can see a cut from which blood is flowing. Mu-jin, who has this wound on his face, looks ahead in confusion. The opponent smiles and wonders if this is a good trick. He raises his hand and looks at the young man. Min-young states that if it weren't for him, the guy would have died from 1 blow. He adds that he likes the feeling of not knowing whether you're going to die or not. Min-young's gaze becomes terrifying. Mu-jin looks at the cut on his cheek, and his opponent notes that he hasn't felt this for a long time. Jai-Soo, standing on the podium, raises her head in interest, realizing that this is the Bloody Sphere ability. There are drops of blood on a black background. The girl thinks that this ability is the best among her attribute. The blue-haired man looks up in surprise. He crosses his arms, covering himself with them. The young man looks out with his frightened eyes. Min-young says that every time blood is shed, life becomes shorter. More cuts appear on Mu-jin's hand, and drops of blood scatter around her. The black-haired man wonders if this is fun. He licks his lips and says that he is very pleased to meet you. The guy raises his hands and smiles, squinting his eyes and calling his opponent level 10.